this is what I felt like. They're like, but Tom, are you one of us? You stay up all night. And I said, well, I'm going to bed because I knew I was quitting. So I go to bed. The next morning I go to the airport like 7:30 and I run into my buddy and he's in line. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, so welcome to Graphic Sales Stories. We're your co-hosts. Tom Stearns, that's Peter Cleary. Today, we're going to hit the Wayback Machine, and we're going to look at what was actually our first pilot comic, if you will, that we didn't actually publish until 6 months after we started publishing, and that was 6 months ago. Anyways, that's a lot of math, but we're going to talk about what is called the intoxicating interview. And Peter, while I pull that up, why don't you give us a little history on this story and comic?
This is really the introduction of me into telecom sales. So we had a bunch of guys from college ended up working for a company called MFS, and it was a startup. There was a first company really to compete with the local Bell Telecom company. So this is during divestiture, people Wayback Machines, little Scooby-Doo. So it is so we were told, me and my good friend were told, like, hey, they're hiring. They really like guys coming from our college, from St. Anselm College, so you can interview. And if you interview, they're going to offer you a base rate, and this is how old I am, of $15,000, which was really good back then. They're like, but if you hold out, you can probably get up to $21,000. I'm like, whoa, that's a huge difference. That's great.
Big difference.
And the comp plan is pretty good. So we set up interviews, and I have the first interview with a different team. So there's two teams. So I interview with this other manager, and we go through, and our interview goes great, and I get the job offer exactly what they went, $15,000. Push back, eventually get the $21,000. I go home, and so my roommate, the other guy, my roommate, I tell him, like, this is great. When's your interview? He's like, it's like Wednesday. I'm like, fantastic. I forget that he has the interview, and we live in Salem, Massachusetts, and we go out drinking. and this story is what happens after we went out drinking, and he had to get up the next day to go and I'll tell you this, what we should do for good drinking. So because we lived together, we lived in Salem, Mass. It was awesome, but Salem, Mass closed down at midnight, which is always good because that you had to get home early. But then we would go home and we would play like NHL 94. We play video games. And so he stayed up because he just gets so frustrated they couldn't beat me in NHL 94. And we stayed up later in the apartment, and he went to bed late and had to get up for, I think, an 8 o'clock interview.
Oh, goodness. I remember in Salem, it was like if you went to Maddie's Sail Loft in Marblehead, they closed at 11. So then you go to Salem to 12, and then you went to Lynn till like 1 or 2, and then back to Salem to play video games.
Salem was great because it was walking down the street. You just walk, you can walk and back. Yeah. Anyway, Salem was a great time.
But one of the reasons why we're covering this now, 6 months after we published it, is that we tried to get this individual on the podcast to talk about it, and no reply.
Yes.
Which you can understand. So we'll leave this person anonymous. But what about the super suits, Peter? Explain why we're in super suits.
So this was actually the beta test for Eli. So we didn't know Eli. We got Eli's name, and we described to him what we're looking for. So he did this comic for us, and we paid him for it. But this is really kind of see if this guy had the chops, and that's really funny because he absolutely can see just comics. He's way better than we are at what we do. He's got the chops. But this was like, hey, and he was really excited. He drew the ticket. He was a comic book fan, and Tom and I the way we described what we wanted to do, because he wasn't a salesperson. We're like, we like the grittiness of the Watchmen. We like the grittiness of the Batman graphic novels, and so we used superheroes, those graphic novels, described because that's what Tom and I knew. So he took that and ran with it. It's like, great, I created these super suits for you because you guys are into the superhero stuff. And we're like, yep, that's nice. And he spent a lot of time on them, and so because the way we described what the grittiness of what we wanted and what the shape of what we wanted was all around superheroes, he decided to put us in super suits. So unfortunately, we had to break his heart because he spent a ton of time on it. Like, yeah, that's great, but we don't really want to be in super suits. So we had to figure out what to do with this in Halloween episode. So we decided he added a couple of different things in there to make it Halloween, but that's why it was, even though it was the first one we did, we had to wait till Halloween to release it to give an excuse of why we're in, those super suits.
Yeah. And Eli did, like, when you look at the super suits though, and I'll put a link below. There's some bonus art where you see us just in the super suits. They're really clever. I mean, it's like you see the B2B on my shoulder. I think Peter's suit was made entirely from like materials that you could buy at an office retail store, like office supply retail store. There's all sorts of, like, you can see little gadgets and things that relate to selling. Let's see if we can get in there a little bit more. Yeah, we both have these sort of goggles. Anyways, I'll post that below. But look at some of, like, just the awesomeness when, like, this one down here, this face, your face, when we saw this of you, Peter, like, man, he really, really captures your likeness right out of the gate. And this one on the right reminds me so much. I was a huge Watchmen fan of kind of like Rorschach without his mask on.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's the facial expression, and Eli's proven to be, this is one thing he's really good at. The facial expressions are fantastic. Like, you easily know without any words there, guy's drunk, guy's hungover. That's and then you see his sense of humor coming through, and beer flavored beer, right? For his the name of the beer.
And beer flavored beer, the back behind here. And like, this is one of my favorite images of anything Eli's done, is this manager here, the guy doing the interview. I mean, look at that character. It's just awesome. Awesome. And over here, again, another sort of like this red hair kind of Rorschach feeling of,
and again, an absolutely true story. when in hungover, smelling like he's hungover, and getting the job offer because he could get up hungover and show up on time for an interview and getting the job. But he didn't get the $21,000.
He didn't get the extra bonus. No,
he didn't get the extra bonus. So we both were doing the same exact job, and I'll make a little bit more than him.
Pushing your luck, kid. But I appreciate the moxie. Awesome.
I think, I mean, that's exactly it. And by the way, I would say this, without giving out names, but that manager did have a little bit of a drinking problem, so I think that's why he appreciated what he could do. And for the rest of his time there was this kind of like his little drinking buddy. Hey, little drinking buddy.
Oh, great. Boy, this is just so good.
So again, those are the stories that we use. That's why we started this thing, because of those type of stories, like the wacky world of sales. Like, there's some really crazy stuff that goes on in sales.
I've had some people like say to me, like, oh, well, like, go to ChatGPT, you can write all sorts of stories. And I'm like, no, they're all real, right? We're trying to draw on real stories. And like, other people have been sharing stories. Maybe we'll do like a guest story, somebody else's story, but every story that we've illustrated has been something that happened to you or to me. We may obfuscate some names and things like that, or inadvertently use a real name, as I did in a recent comic and forgot that I'd used a real name. But let's say
sometimes in order, and actually, let's go back to the picture for 1 second, because I think you can tell this is our first comic because of how wordy it is. And so we wanted to write the story as truthful as possible. And so to 2 points is, we might change stories a little bit to fit a better wording that is better, because one of the things we learned is, there's a lot going on here, and I think in the more recent, we've been able to really more succinct, capture the story better, lean on Eli with facial expressions and in the way he's drawing it to tell the story a little bit more. So you can tell this is our first story, because there's a lot of text going on here, and there's not much in our more recent ones. So we've gotten better at that.
Yeah, I think we've become better writers, and we've also understood each other better. So it's like, hey, we'll lean on Eli for this. And the whole working relationship over, we're publishing this we're in May now, 2025. This was technically the 14th story that one was an ad, but 14th story that we've actually completed. And this was the first, and now we're 14 later. Yeah. So good juxtaposition of what we're doing now versus later. So, all right, Peter, I have a cup. So we're going to stay on the theme of like sort of hiring or bad hiring practices. And I've got a segment. I know you've got one in mind, but I want to start with one of my segments first here, which is called Convince Me. So
Okay.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. This is Convince Me. Peter, convince me that showing up hungover to an interview should be considered a positive sign.
Well, I think exactly the reason why the person got hired. Hey, if you could go out, especially if you're going to get a certain type of sales, and go out and party all night and take your customers out, and still show up and do the job the next day, that there's skill in that. There's skill in being able to take your clients out, have a good time, but showing up and being on spot the next day.
I don't know how in like 2 seconds that you were able to come up with an answer to that. I saw that. I put that question yesterday. I'm like, there's no right answer to that. But yeah, you nailed it. Oh my god!
Yep.
Wow. Okay, you convinced me, but I think you're pushing your luck, kid. All right, let's move on to the segment that you want to cover, which is really story time. So, what stories in this same genre here of hiring do we have that maybe we're not going to illustrate, but should be a graphic sales story
Yeah.
discussion? What do you got? One?
Yeah. So all the directors flew out to Cincinnati, not Cincinnati. Sorry, where did we go? Cleveland. We were in Cleveland, and the senior vice president and the vice president. We come out there the first day. They were some two big guys, old school salespeople. This is the directors of sales engineering. They're old school salespeople, sales engineering leaders. They have partied and gone out until 4 o'clock in the morning. They're the life of the party. They're awesome guys. But they do like to throw back, and they like to have a good time. So we have our meeting, and then we went out to see an Indians game, and then we went out to have went out to dinner, and so we're having a good time at dinner. It's like midnight, and so there's a table. Probably I think there's like 15 directors there, and the senior vice president and president. And I'm like, hey, I'm gonna bail. I'm gonna go back. Tomorrow's an early day. I'm tired. And a bunch of guys made fun of me. Absolutely made fun of me. Like, I'll go back. I'm like, I gotta go back. Tomorrow's a big day, and we're all day meetings to talk about the future and what we're doing. I go back to the hotel, go to bed, wake up next day. I'm there at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so the VP and the senior VP are there, and people coming in, and they're all hungover. And our senior VP goes into them. He goes, I are here early. I keep on using his name. We're here early. We're prepared. We went out because we know we can do this. We can handle this, and we're going to be on our A game today. He goes, you guys who made fun of Peter. I'm like, for shame. He's like, he knew he had to get back because this is why we're here, to be in this classroom. And if you cannot be here and not be hungover or falling asleep at your desk or not paying attention, then get out. And he was so pissed off. And it's basically, and so that's when you tell the story. I'm like, yeah, having the skill set of being able to know and go out and handle yourself, but get up and do the job the next day and have it not affect your business, that's pretty big. And I think I had a bunch of kids at that time, and I was just exhausted. I'm like, I know I'm not going to be able. I'm going to be, if I stayed out drinking, I'm going to be useless tomorrow. So I got to go. I got to go to bed. So
Good on you. Good on you.
yeah.
I have some of the opposite stories, right? Where I'm more like, I guess, maybe the character in the comic. It took me a long time to learn some of those lessons. I worked for a guy that we'd be in Vegas, be like 10 o'clock, and we're wrapping up the corporate stuff for our dinner. And he'd look at me and he's like, Tom, sleep is a weapon. Sleep is a weapon. I'll be like, thanks, Peter. Right. Go out next day, be like, oh God, he was so right. I think maybe, so one other story here that I think I really powered through is that I found myself, I was at like a 2-day corporate, our company sort of sales meeting with presentations all day long and workshops with the whole sales org. There's like 50, 100 people there. And at 4 a.m, I find myself in the hotel room with the president of the division, right? So
Yeah.
the big guy. So I'm not alone here. And all the directors. And at 7:30 the next morning, my buddy and I are due to present a script, like a skit. Like we had to present our product line to the sales organization that we're a part of, and we had built a whole skit around it. And so at 4 o'clock, I finally leave the room, and then I go down to the convention to make sure that all the technology set up, still working. I'm like, I got to be prepared, even though my head's spinning. Went up, crashed for a couple hours, got there in the morning, and somehow we still pulled it off and got a lot of laughs. Probably because everybody was still drunk in the audience. But
It is
not something I'm super proud of. But yeah, powered through, pulled it off.
there's so many on the reverse side. I think for a while when I was in direct sales and when I was in the early days of like the .com, and then as things after the .com crash, things built back up. There were I almost every sales conference somebody get fired.
Really?
Somebody, yeah.
Every sales
There,
conference.
I would say, I remember one guy was so excited he came down and had a jar of moonshine that he brought with him on the on the trip, and we were in Florida, and he drank like half the bottle and was just by midnight that night got kicked out of the bar, just completely annihilated. There was one year where some guy slapped a woman, like a counterpart. Like there's just like alcohol is a bad thing, people. Alcohol, like if you know your limits and remove yourself from the situation. But yeah, there's the early days there was a lot of just hedonism. I'll tell a story. We were at the Grand Ole Opry. This is even this is the leaders. The Grand Ole Opry, WorldCom had just bought MFS. So Sidgmore, who had been the president and CEO of UUNet, is now working for Bernie Ebbers. Bernie Ebbers is CEO of WorldCom. They had John Sidgmore there, and then Jim Crow was our president. He was there. Jim Crow was very professional. Bernie Sanders.
Jim Crow. His name was Jim Crow.
Yeah, James Crow. The other two not professional. So later, one of the nights, like I think the second night of our time in the Grand Ole Opry, Ebbers and Sidgmore were swimming in the river that goes through the whole thing, and the whole WorldCom basically said, "Don't come back." And I don't think there was a problem with that because then it crashed and fell, and the whole WorldCom blew up thing. But the absolute just disaster. So that's not even people. This is what happens when you've had too much fun at these conventions. Even the CEO and I think it was the COO, get into trouble.
Wow. I got one more story, and then let's move to the next segment. So I got one more story. That same organization that I mentioned, like I was burning out. Our company had been bought by a mega enterprise, owned like 50 brands. But the division I was in, they had their national sales conference, and it was the first time we're going. And I had already decided that I was leaving that organization. And so we go there, and it's just understood that after dinner, there's a big sales dinner and award ceremony and all that, is that everyone stays up all night, like drinking.
It's understood.
It's understood, right? Well, that's what I'm told by, and again, one of my buddies is there, right?
Of course, that's what it is. Somebody's playing tricks on you. Yeah. Stay up all night drinking.
It's expected, right? So I think at like midnight or 1 or something, I say to my buddy, who's like crushing it, great sales guy, went on, he's like just an amazing career. But anyways, he's a young guy at the time, and I'm like, I'm going to bed. And he's like, Tom, no, it's expected. Like, we have to be here. And like someone from that organization leans over, was like, dude, no, we stay up all night. And it reminded me of the Seinfeld episode. George, are you one of us? Remember when George is trying to get hired by that company, and they're like, eat the pie, and he knows the chef had like tainted it.
It's delicious. I insist.
If you're one of us, you'll take a bite.
This is what I felt like. They're like, but Tom, are you one of us? You stay up all night. And I said, well, I'm going to bed, because I knew I was quitting. So I go to bed. The next morning I go to the airport like 7:30, and I run into my buddy, and he's in line. And I'm like, what happened? He's like, dude, I haven't gone to bed. Just getting on the plane. I'll sleep up. I'm like, everybody else? He's like, yeah, everybody else stayed up except for you. And I'm like, he's like, watch out. Who knows what's going to happen to you?
Yeah.
But I gave my notice like a couple of days later. And I was very rested and felt great.
Yeah.
All right, Peter, I've got another segment here for us. This is a quick round. Okay. This is our quick fire hiring edition round. I'm going to read out a question and then we're going to take turns answering. And we got like 10-second answers here. Ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is punctuality more important than preparation?
No.
Why?
Preparation's the key to everything. You can't being there but not knowing what to say. It's a waste of time. So, I can give an excuse to why I'm being late. I can't give an excuse for not knowing what I'm talking about.
Fair enough. I would ask you myself the same question. I would completely agree. Though punctuality is really important to me, but you can have a good reason for being late, but you can't have a good reason for not being prepared. Okay, next question.
Is punctuation better than punctuality?
Okay, is punctuation better? I know what your answer to that is going to be, Peter. Is
Yes.
punctuation better than preparation?
No. And punctuation has no place in the real world. No, if you guys don't know, I have no idea how to spell or punctuate. That's where AI is the best thing for me. I always tell them, like, could you fix the grammar, please, in this? And it changes everything I do. Anyway.
Yes, I can attest to that, having known Peter for 30 years. Okay, next question. Would you hire someone who admitted they were hungover?
No.
You wouldn't?
No, it's back to preparation. Were you prepared for this? You can't be prepared for this if you're drinking up the night before and coming in for the interview. No, I wouldn't.
Okay, so you wouldn't have hired that friend of yours that you took out
absolutely
drinking
no.
the night before?
There's no way I would have hired him. There is no way. Yeah.
I'm going to have a hard time saying 100% no to this. I guess, but you make perfect sense. I can't really defend it, but I might be able to overcome that, and I can't explain why. All right.
It's a feeling based. It's a feeling based decision you're making there rather than logical based decision.
I'm making a feeling based, or that people make mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. Is confidence greater than competence in interviews?
Yes.
Really?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Confidence is greater than competence in interviews. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm going to say no.
It's great.
I'm going to go no with
both. All right, you tell me why no, and then I'll prove why you're wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna say no, because interviewing is not the skill that you're being hired for, and people get nervous. If I can ascertain that you really know how to do the job, you just don't know how to interview, and it makes you nervous, then that's a skill I'll take over, wow, you're a really super confident person. It leans towards arrogance almost. Like some people are, I've interviewed people.
That's different. That's a different question. That's a different question.
I've interviewed people that are so confident. I almost feel like I'm being snowed, right?
There's so you can be confident without arrogance. So arrogance is a different thing. If somebody comes in really arrogant, like they know more than I do, or they're pushing, then no, I'm not going to hire that person, because it goes back to the same thing. Confidence is more important to me. I mean, it's not that you have to have some knowledge here, but the confidence comes out because your job is to communicate properly. And people who have confidence can communicate properly, especially in a sales role. If they have confidence in what they're talking about, that comes across, right? So even if I know what I'm talking about, but I'm stuttering and I'm not clear and I'm not confident in myself, that comes across as this person's not confident in their product set or the company. So confidence is a big part to me. Like, hey, you're gonna come across as a knowledgeable person, being able to communicate the information properly and have confidence in your answer and who you are. So yeah, confidence is very strong to me.
I agree. It's strong too, and I think that's a fair answer. Again, I'm still going to default that, like, and it is more important in a sales role, but I still think that people can have a bad day, can not be confident in an interview.
God, you're hanging. You're going to hire the hungover guy who can't really communicate. All right.
But I think they're competent.
Hey, let's see. Let's vote on that for people on the internet. Oh, I think I won. They all agreed me. I win.
I didn't hear anything. I don't know what you're talking about.
I heard it.
All right, here's the next one. Should you always negotiate your offer?
That's an interesting question. Should you always negotiate your offer? So depending on who's listening to this, I would say yes later on in life. Early on in life, like you and I and people our age that have the skill set and built it up over years. We're negotiating based off of here's what I can do. This is the knowledge I bring to the table. This is why you're paying me more than maybe somebody else because I can describe to you. I have confidence in describing to you what my skill sets are and capabilities because I'm sober. If you're new, you don't have that to lean on. So sometimes it's like I got the job. Yeah, it's around what I would like to make. What's making, especially at that level, like a couple $1,000s more, is setting it around the wrong setting foot mark of going into the job. You might not want to do it. But later on in life, I think when you have that to lean on and like my worth, I am worth more than this, then yeah, I would say. So that's why it's difficult. I'd say,
Yeah.
For me, yes, I should always. For my daughters who are just getting their first job, probably not.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. It really depends. But yeah, absolutely. If you're entry level, you're early stage, and you've done your homework, and you're like, it's a reasonable offer. It's like, yeah, now you're just endangering your chance of getting that job. Accept what they're offering. If they ever like some organizations, like, hey, every role is paid this, right? So
Yeah.
you try to negotiate that, and you're coming in as a junior AE, and like you can't blow their scale. If they change it for you, now you actually are screwing up their system, and they were going to say no, and you're just going to be a pain in the ass to them for even asking. So
your 20s are to get the skill to be able to negotiate more. That's you're building your resume, you're building your skill set. Anyway, that's my thought.
All right, I got one more question in this category. Is Moxie a valid hiring metric?
Isn't Moxie the orange drink? I don't think that's needed.
Well, Moxie's something, by the way, in our script for the story we just read, in case you forgot. Like, you're pushing your luck, kid, but I appreciate the Moxie.
Your Moxie.
My daughter actually likes Moxie. She's like the only person I know that likes to drink Moxie and has
so
a Moxie.
On my pickup league, because we're all the same people play for past like 15 years together, we got a guy called Moxie. Because he's very confident in his skating ability, even though he's defense, but he plays a lot of offense. So repeat the question back to me. Sorry.
All right, yeah, because Moxie's a level of confidence. So is Moxie a valid hiring metric? Like we're hiring them, we're looking for people with Moxie. Is it like grit? Is it like overconfidence? What is Moxie?
In all of when I build what I'm looking for to set the interview process up and who I'm trying to interview for, Moxie is a type of confidence, but I think it's a more of a I don't want to say confrontational, but I don't think so. I don't feel that Moxie is something I would necessarily look for specifically. I don't know if I think it's a neutral for me. I'm like, if somebody had Moxie, I'm not looking at it as a negative or a positive, but it's not something I'm specifically looking for and say, this is what I need in this role. I think there's a lot more. Coachability is a top, it's top word. Ability to learn and to adjust and flexibility, those things really take more to the top. And Moxie is kind of like, all right.
Yeah, I'd agree. I don't think Moxie is a valid hiring metric for sure. And yeah, so simple answer for me. I agree with you, Peter, on this one. So
I think I'm 0 for 4. I'm 4 for 0, 4 0. You're 0 and I'm 4. That's
I think hold on. I agreed. So there were 5 questions there. I agreed with, I think, you twice. So I'm at least 2 for 5.
Well, you agreed with me because of my prowess in debating.
Yeah, you got Moxie, kid. All right, so let's play the next segment. This is what we call AI roulette. We took the script from the comic that we've been talking about, put it into AI, and said, AI, ask us anything you want. Let's see what we got here. Okay, it's given us questions for you, a question for you, a question for me, and then a question for both of us. Okay. So I'll go, you're on the hot seat first every time. You've got a faster wit than I do, and I think that makes sense.
Before we get into this, we should say that we're not using the name of the AI tool, but if you are an AI company, you want to pay us to use your name, we will gladly put your name as the AI tool that we use.
Yes. If you want to sponsor this podcast, good. And also, we don't use Eli's a real person, right? These are all illustrated. We write our own stories, and they're all illustrated by hand. There's no AI, but we're going to use AI to ask us a dumb question. For Peter from AI, you said you've learned more from bad managers than good ones. What's the single worst habit you picked up from a bad manager before realizing, oh no, this is not how you lead people?
That's a excellent question, AI. Whoever created that AI is a great company. It's the worst habit I probably you know what? Early on, there was a manager who said that I had to, in order to become a true manager person, I needed to fire somebody quickly. So as he's basically like, hey, you should really fire somebody to get to make your, it known that you're the boss and that, you can do this and, and get that under your belt. So I was told early on. So, but that's not a habit I had. I actually realized, I'm like, right now, that's an idiot, stupid thing to say. So what's a habit I picked up? I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's a good answer, right? It's a slightly different answer to the.
I didn't like. They actually, it's funny. He gave me somebody said fire this guy. The guy turned out to be awesome. Like, I'm not firing him. He's unbelievably good.
Yeah, it's like you got to sacrifice someone to prove your worth.
Just,
like,
yeah. You know what? I would say this. This is a habit I had for a long time that I had that I didn't do. I had this manager tell me, he's like, hey, when you go into a meeting, if you're not prepared and if you don't have an agenda, don't worry about it. Just talk off the top of your head, but say stuff like, oh, that's the first topic I wanted to talk about. So here's the second topic. And it's like whatever you want to talk about. And then look at your clock and say, okay, that's exactly how long I wanted to talk about. Great. I'm on track. So he's like, just make it up as you go. And I'm like, oh, that sounds genius. I'm like, that sounds really like I'm on top of it, the whole thing. I'm like, and then realize I'm like, oh, it would be better if I actually wrote this stuff down and stayed to it and sent out the agenda and held myself and other people accountable rather than just making it up. But when I first heard it, I'm like, that's genius.
He was teaching you a skill of like, hey, you can be lazy and unprepared, and here's how you get away with it.
And fake it. It has how you fake it. So, yeah. Yes.
That's a good one. Wow. Excellent. All right. Here's one for me from AI. You sat in on this interview to help the manager improve their hiring process. What was your reaction in the moment when the "you're hired" moment happened? Did you step in or just sit there like a stunned meerkat? So it read the script. It's thinking I was sitting in on that interview versus Peter's story. And did I step in or did I sit? Now, if I was in that situation, which I wasn't, I would, I'm almost certain, have sat there like a stunned meerkat.
So as a consultant, if you get hired to help people, to analyze how they're hiring people, because the VC, the CEO, or whoever's hiring you says, we're not hiring the right people, could you go find out why? She's like, great, I'm gonna sit in on this meeting. What would you walk away from? Like, okay, this is what was done wrong.
Yeah, so I would, upon reflection, right? So this is sort of my nature, right? Like, I process information. I'm good on my feet when I know something, but this is so outrageous that I'm sure, knowing myself, that at the moment, I probably would have been just stunned and not know what to do. And then I would have reflected.
But the proper thing probably would have to say like, hey, you know what? Before we make an offer here, let's go back and think.
That's what you would do, right? That's what a normal person would do. I'm knowing myself, I'd probably be like so stunned it would happen before I caught up to the situation.
Yeah.
Now I'd like to say, I'd like to say,
I believe you would have fixed it on the back end. Like, hey, let's not write this guy. Like, you got to call and apologize, but we close this position.
I would have corrected it as a consultant, but in the moment, it's so outrageous that knowing what other situations in my life, things like this have happened, where I would have just looked like a stunned meerkat.
Yeah,
it's kind of weird.
Well, because it is like, how did we go from this guy's hungover to you got a job, son? Is this guy like, what the hell happened here?
I think probably what it would have done, because one thing I'm really good at as a consultant is that I do figure things out. I figure people out. Sometimes it takes a little longer, but that would have sat in my brain. I would have woken up at 2 a.m. and be like, why would a manager do that? And then I would have started looking at his personal behavior and figured out that he had probably his own drinking problem. And that's why he would allow that to happen. And then it would have been discussions with management.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good question, AI. All right. So we got a couple more. These are for both of us, but
Okay.
I'll ask it to you first, Peter. From AI, in what universe does showing up reeking of whiskey become a plus in the hiring process? Can you name another time you've seen a horrible first impression somehow win someone a job?
Two questions in there, right? So
There's
what
two.
job? And
So yeah, in what universe does it happen that this is
if
okay?
if I think the only one I could think of that might be okay, um, my cousin's roommate after college was a distributor for hard liquor for I can't remember what the distribution company is in New Jersey, and his job was to go to bars all night long and make sure and taste test get people to drink his whiskey and have promos and all that type of stuff. I can see where if you showed up drunk one day, like the leaders going like, hey, it must have been a great night last night. Try not to do that more often, but you're around it so much. I can see it eventually, every once in a while happening and being, it's not going to be a bad thing. And that's the only time I can think about that.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I couldn't think of any. But yeah, maybe if you're in the industry and you're like, hey, I'm still working this other job. My job last night was to take all these clients out, right?
Yeah.
And it's expected, and that's the culture. Like maybe you could talk your way out of it, but yeah, there's no good reason. So the second part of that was, can you name another time you've seen a horrible first impression? Like, is there any times you've seen a bad first impression help
Yeah.
someone in a job? Yeah.
Yes. So I was hiring for a position, and this woman who really didn't have. I'm very open to interviewing people I think have certain characteristics, not moxie, and not arrogance, but have certain characteristics, and they might not have a knowledge of the job. In an interview, see, hey, does this, can they go here? So she came in, and she did not impress, and I moved her to the second interview. So I always have 3 interviews. My interview, which is really to capture the cultural and does this person can be fit into the organization. The second interview is, do they have the knowledge? And the third interview is with a panel, to write up to do a certain presentation to us. And first interview horrible, but I kind of really didn't have that many candidates that I needed for the specific role. So I like to always have 3. I had 2 that were strong. I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna send this person through because I did like her, but I don't think she has the skill sets, but let's see more. Go through the second interview. The feedback I got from the person doing the interview is like, not really knowledgeable, but pretty good, but there's a weakness here. I like this other person here. And then the other person that I thought was better dropped out, got an offer as a manager someplace else. So now I'm like, okay, I want to send 2 people forward. So I'll send her forward. And I'm very, very open about, okay, here's what we need to come out and present on. Here's the, example we want you to work on, and here's the questions we need to. And I was very straightforward about, this is what we're looking for. This is what we want from you. And when she came to present, it was very clear that she did her research. She listened to and it absorbed what I told her and adjusted her presentation. And she came out and absolutely crushed it because she listened. And so there were the top things like, oh, she's coachable. She listens and adjusts. She worked hard and was prepared. She wasn't hungover, right? She came in, she was extremely prepared for it. So the lack of knowledge she had from the technology was completely, I forgot about that. I'm like, this person will be good. I can teach somebody the technology. The things that she showed, I can't teach. And I'm glad that she made it through. In each row, skin of her teeth, but then she got the job because she really blew me away with the way she was presented. So that's my example.
Okay, I'm going to give an example. It kind of calls back to what we talked about earlier in competence and the confidence. There were two people interviewing for a job. I was interviewing them back to back, along with it was like a team interview, like with the manager. And the first person was a guy, like super confident, seemed to know everything, real salesy, like the relationship kind of seller, made a huge first impression, gave a lot of like data points and things that seemed to make sense, like they had a process. And then we had the next interview with this woman who was an introvert, but I've seen introverts, and a lot of introverts be great salespeople because
Yeah.
they follow a process. So less of an impression, more subdued. Certainly didn't have the wow. And we left that interview, and the manager was like, "Oh wow, that was like a blah kind of interview." But I spotted some things there, and so we did another round like you did, and that was sort of part of the process. I'm like, let's pass her through though, and let's make sure the president or the CRO, whoever's next, sees both of these people. And what we found, a very astute CRO, the super confident guy, he was able to unpack the numbers and things, and they were all kind of like bullshit, right? And
Yeah.
then, but with her, what he uncovered is the sort of the methodology and the honesty and integrity and the process driven, and also drew out some examples from the past. So she ended up getting the job and went on to be fantastic. So yeah,
Setting up the right questions into we can put a whole segment on it too, but
yes,
asking the right questions to draw out the truth is a skill set,
it
and
is.
you got to work on it.
And reading the history, like a lot of my clients will say, "Hey, we're looking at these people." I'm like, "Send me, their LinkedIn profile," and I can scan like information and spot that. There's some of those are assumptions, so we're definitely going to test them. But I'll see a lot of like my clients, they'll have the recruiter, the hiring manager, just pushing resumes through. And I'm like, let me see them before anybody talks to these people, because
Yeah.
that's time consuming. And I can spot these patterns and usually
Yeah.
be spot on
And
with
by the way,
that.
I'm not a fan of resumes because resumes are just big lying machines. So I'm not a huge fan of resumes.
Fair enough. All right, we got a couple more questions. Let's go to the next one for both of us. By the way, I haven't read these ahead of time. So AI says, let's say your friend didn't ask for the extra $6,000. How much do you think that manager would have offered anyway? And what does that tell us about negotiating during the hiring process?
Well, he did throw out the 14,000 first. It's so AI might not understand that. So it was 14,000, then he asked for the 21,000 and didn't get it. But let's change that around to say, so if he wasn't specific, let's say he asked for more, would he have gotten $2,000 more? But because he was specific and asked for 6,000, do I think that's smart? I think putting a number there for both sides. So negotiating, like if you're going to ask for more, never put a number on it. Uh, and a quick story, I had this woman that I worked closely with. She was asked to go transfer into another group because she was very, very good. She was a program manager. They wanted her to become a product manager. So product manager team asked her, "Hey, come on board over here." And so she called me up, and I was telling her, giving her some advice of what to do. And she and I said, "Don't when they give you the number, just say, hey, you're expecting more. And is there anything more they can do for you?" I go, don't give a number, because if you give a number and they respond right away, you're going to say, crap, I should ask for more. Because you want a little hesitancy there. You don't want it to be so outrageous, but you don't know, like, hey, if you ask for 10,000, is that too little? Is that too much? Where it is. So give them the opportunity, because you can always say no. One of our friends, his statement is, no matter what it is, always go back with like, I'm so shocked, I don't know what to say about that, and leave it at that, because they don't so they have them negotiate with themselves. But she came back to me and she's like, I was nervous. They threw out a number. They asked me, and I finally threw out a number, and they said, "Great, no problem, let's go." And she's like, instantly, I'm like, Peter was right. They said yes too soon. I should have asked for more. And I'm like, it's a life lesson. It's a life lesson. So that's what I would take away. It's like, it's not more of what he have offered. More like, that's why you don't want to give a number. So I think by him saying $6,000, it's easier to say no. But if he said, "Is there anything more you can do?" he might have gotten $2,000 more, or $3,000 more
Yeah.
than that.
Very good. That's a good lesson right there. Thank you, Peter. Oh, you tied that one nicely. All right, let's go on to the next one. That question's really stupid. This is more of a statement, but I'm going to read it anyways from AI. If this story were turned into a hiring manager, what would chapter 1 be titled?
I'm an idiot.
Smell the potential.
Yes.
Whiskey and win-win.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know what AI is looking for there, but yeah.
Yeah.
Booze. What is the Finnegan's Wake? Yeah.
Finnegan's Wake. Okay, let's try another one here. What's your take on managers who reward confidence or boldness, even if it comes wrapped in tequila and poor judgment? Let me answer one first because you've got such great answers. It's hard to follow you up. So my take on boldness and confidence and rewarding that is, I kind of hate that. It's sort of like sales organizations that are looking for the relationship seller, or that exceptional confidence in sales. Now, I believe that like being able to communicate is, like you said, very important. But in my experience, the process-driven, disciplined, maybe understated salespeople are long-term the more successful over that guy that comes in and is like, wow, they're really fun and you want to hang out with them. Like I've seen too much of that. I've seen too much of the sort of old relationship or boys club kind of sales teams that, those reps are so confident that they're not coachable. You can't teach them anything. They want to do everything their own way. It's like, I'm looking for somebody, and this goes back to earlier, I think, where I'm looking for competence, not confidence. I'm looking for someone that's coachable, that wants to get better, that even if they're 50, our age, like there's still something to learn. So I don't like that. And I don't like managers that are drawn to that because they're missing.
Well, you're 100% right, and I'm going to go back and like confidence and arrogance are two different things. I think sometimes you're saying confidence is arrogance, but to your 100% your point, as soon as that AI asked that question, I'm like, if the core of the person and the personality and the way they do business is bad, it's a bad hire. It's a bad person. So you wrap that with whatever you want. Your job as a consultant and anybody who's a manager's job is, well, what's behind this? Let me peel back the onion. Come back to that bad saying, but how do I get to the root of what this person does? And they give you the interview with the woman who had more capabilities. I'm like, you got to get to the root of the person's, what their motivations are and how they work. And if the root of this person is he drinks a lot, and that's not going to survive. That's not going to last. So. Yeah, getting to the root cause is it's either good or bad, and that's a bad situation.
Great. All right, I got two more questions from AI. One is like maybe a real question. The other one's just kind of we can answer with one word. It's kind of funny, but okay. Let's play armchair psychologist for a second. What unconscious bias do you think was most at play in the hiring manager's decision? I think that's easy because you worked there.
Well, it's easy because I know the person, but the unconscious is, I got a drinking buddy. Like this guy is like me. He reminds me of me. He goes out and hits it. This is the people who, and I'm going to make a stereotype of this type of person, but I think their mentality in sales was they work hard, play hard. I'm like, that that's a drinking problem and going to work and showing up at work. That's not work hard, play hard. But I think that's the subconscious, like, he's just like me. I'm going to hire this guy and take him under my wing.
Yeah. And he can grind it out and get up the next day and make it to work just like me. Right. Yeah. Looked at that as an unconscious, positive thing. Okay. Last one. So I'm quoting here from AI. And last one, what do you think happened to that friend still with the company? Now the VP of culture? We know that. No.
Yes, he's doing very well. Well, we were there probably, I think, 3 years. I think we were there 30. Now, with that being said, there was a change in leadership about a year and a half into our tenure at that company. But the person who got hired is not that type of person. He doesn't go out. He's very responsible. He does extremely well at his company, and he's just a great guy.
Yeah. You're a kid in your 20s. You do dumb things. And we certainly outgrow it. If you don't, we probably don't still know you. This segment's called Red Flag, Green Flag. Really simple. I'm going to read these out, and then we'll take turns answering red flag or green flag. Candidate negotiates comp during the first interview. Red flag?
Red
flags. Yeah, easy. Red flag.
Yeah.
Okay. Candidate admits to being nervous.
Neutral. I have to choose one. Do I have to choose one? It's not a red flag. So I go,
yeah, I don't know if it's a green flag either, but it's human, right? It's human. I'm going to put it on the green. You might go yellow. Maybe you could choose yellow. Yeah. Okay.
If I'm looking for salespeople to feign confidence and lie, then I would say there's a red flag.
Okay. All right. Candidate name drops a friend at the company.
I'll agree. I'll give that a green flag.
Green flag. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, no bill there. That's so I would give it a green flag because part of a sales job is to do your research and to bring up credible things. And I know that's maybe not super credible, but yeah, it's you go in there.
I got a story.
Okay. Story interlude. Yeah. A little. Go ahead.
So years ago, somebody dropped, and I'm gonna use his real name. So somebody dropped that I know John Holland. So he's interviewing for a job to somebody the guy interviewing knows the person doing the interview is friends with John Holland. And so the guy interviewing drops John Holland's name and says, I know John Holland. And they're like, oh, great. You know John? Yep, I know him really well. Fantastic. So they have this quick conversation about John Holland. Of course, the guy instantly calls John Holland's like, hey, do you know this guy interviewed me? Like, yeah, he's horrible. He's like, why would he drop my name? That guy was just a nightmare. Why would he give my name? He's terrible. Now, to continue the story, now the manager, the hiring person, is horrible. He then turns to the guy, calls him up and says, we're not going to hire you. John Holland said you're horrible.
More red flags.
More like this. There's so much going on around. But I still remember that story because I'm like you dropped a name of somebody you know that was not going to say positive. So make sure if you're going to drop a name, the guy is going to follow up with something positive about you if they're contacting that person.
God. I've got a little tip here, maybe something that I learned from a boss is that when we were in the final stages with the people, we'd actually go hunting for a reference that wasn't provided by the candidate, right? And it was not easy before LinkedIn, by the way.
LinkedIn makes that so easy, which everybody should do. Everybody should do that.
But this is the old day. Like we'd call around. It's like we'd say to the recruiter, "Find," and they'd be like, "What?" But the guy I worked for would literally do that, chase down, and it really saved us because there were some people that were like, "We found that person." Like, you don't want to hire that person.
Yeah.
Okay, one more. Red flag, green flag. Easy one. Candidate smells like tequila.
That's a red flag.
Hey, it's a red flag. Okay. So I think we're sort of at the wrap up here, Peter. So we've unpacked some horror stories in hiring.
Yeah.
And it's one of our favorite topics. We'll be back on this topic at some point. Sure, we got a couple more stories to illustrate. Any parting thoughts for our many millions of viewers right now?
As we're talking about this, there's so many hiring stories going through my head that are just absolutely crazy. We should do more.
Let's save them for
I'm just thinking about so many different, just dumb things that happen on interviews, and it's why I'm very picky about interviews. By interviewing being the very first part, you've got to take this so seriously, and it's the start of the whole coaching if you hire the person. Anyway, the take back here, I think, is a couple different things. One is the comic, I think, is fantastic. It shows the great artistry of Eli. It's a fun story. It shows how much we've grown as writers into this whole thing. But I think it's a type of story that anybody who reads it can relate to. So that's why I'm a big fan of the story. I'm like, there's, like you said at the very beginning, people are going to read this and have some type of crazy interview story that they can relate to.
Yeah, yeah. And my parting thought here is that there's a takeaway in that story, right? Like, just don't be an idiot, right? Don't be dumb. Be prepared, do your research, show up on time. And the other part, though, is that interviewing is a skill. So I tell my kids and young reps I work with is that when you're going to look for the next job, right, be patient with yourself and try and interview anywhere, right?
Yeah.
Warm up, you practice with your friend or family, like go through some scenarios, because sometimes the first impression's all you got. So if the first interview is with a company you don't even want to work for, that's okay, right? It's like, maybe it's just your warm-up interview. You
Right.
will get better, but practice with someone you trust too, and just don't get hammered the night before the interview.
So
Like
what I
what
heard
Peter
from
did to his friend, but somehow he still got the job.
Yeah. So let me recap what you just said. Show confidence and don't be hungover. I think that's what we have. Confidence is very important on the interview.
Always have to be right.
It just happens. It just happens that I'm always right.
Thanks, Peter. All right.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time, everybody.